in the mountains of Argentina's remote northwest, it is closer to Bolivia than Buenos Aires, both in miles and mentality. Many of the inhabitants of this region are indigenous Indians, who work the land growing maize, herding goats, or raising vicuña. Others have moved to the commercial hub of the region, the pretty colonial city of Salta, with its candy-pink cathedral, high-walled convents, and bustling plazas. 1,000 kilometers away from the capital, this is one of the poorest areas of Argentina, but it wasn't always this way. 100 years ago, the area prospered by mining and agriculture. A railway line was built to export goods across the Andes to the coast of Chile, and today, a train service still operates the route for tourists. Well, it's nearing 7 o'clock in the morning, and with several hundred other passengers, I'm about to board the Tren a las Nubes, the train to the clouds, and head up into the Andes at more than 4,000 meters above sea level. There was keen anticipation as we pulled out of General Belgrano station, located on the eastern edge of Salta. For 3 years, the train to the clouds was suspended, while the rail operator and the government feuded over money. This service used to be the province's biggest tourism earner. There is great relief that it is up and running again. The train to the clouds is a proper iron workhorse running on narrow-gauge tracks. The route is a dizzying engineering feat, passing through 21 tunnels and over 29 bridges. 2 hours into the journey, we pass through the town of Campo Quijano. This is where Richard Fontaine Maury, the American engineer credited with designing the railway, is buried beside the tracks.
Just to think back in the 1920s when they built the railroad, the amount of tunnels they had to dig through some of these very big mountains, the switchbacks. Right now we're actually going up the Y, where the train has to pull forward and then back up, kind of like, as the steward said, kind of how sheep climb the mountain. I just thought it was wonderful.
I watched the landscape roll by. The cultivated land petered out as we climbed higher into the mountains. Local gauchos here wear guardamontes, stiff, rawhide chaps to protect against thorns and cacti spines. At lunchtime, the onboard guides recommended we eat lightly in the increasingly thinning atmosphere. I headed to the bar to buy a steaming cup of mate de coca, said to ward off altitude sickness. Over the course of the day, a fifth of the passengers on our train visited the onboard clinic, which dispenses oxygen and medicine to anyone with symptoms of headache or nausea. Flavia Rivero, the nurse on board, explained to me why she chose this job over working in a hospital.
I think
that this work is interesting because it's so distinctive. Meeting people from different parts of the world, the mountains, all types of animals. I love it. It's partly work, but it's also living another experience.
We corkscrewed around a hill and entered the Quebrada del Toro Gorge. The landscape turned lunar, stripped by wind but studded with giant candelabra-like cacti. The arid Altiplano here is the most extensive area of high plateau outside of Tibet, but the highlight of the journey was still to come at the halfway point. We've been travelling for 7.5 hours, and this has been our first chance to get off the train and stretch our legs. We're also at the very highest point of the rail journey, at 4,200 metres above sea level, at the viaduct Polvorilla, which you can see behind me. If the train continued on the tracks westward, it would end up in Antofagasta, on the coast of Chile, but the train to the clouds now backtracks to Salta. Passengers while away the final hours of the journey, reading, studying maps, eating in the dining cart, and watching the burnished colours of the landscape at sunset. It's just after 11 p.m. and we've pulled into Salta station after a 16-hour-long journey, half of which was over 3,000 metres. So we're all pretty exhausted, I think, and ready for bed.